It is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today, our board chair and also chair of the Business Advocacy Committee, Randy Holloway, and he is going to take the show and run with it.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to start with commissioners, then we'll do the state reps, and then we're going to do our levy issues. We'll invite them up here. We're going to ask them questions. They will have 2 minutes each to respond. Jamie is our timekeeper out here. She has a green card that'll give you 20 seconds to go, and a red card that means stop. We kindly ask that you please stop when the red card comes up. We're on a tight timeline today. Got a lot to get done. We're going to do a brief introduction for each candidate, and then we're going to jump right into the questions. So with that, let's have Jeff and Leah come on up. Make their way on up here. And Jeff Fix has lived in Fairfield County for 22 years. He has served on Pickerington City Council for over 12 years, including 5 terms as its president, as chairman of the Fairfield County Republican Party, and in leadership positions with several boards, charities, and community leadership groups. Leah Hackelman-Good has lived in Fairfield County for 14 years. She is a small business owner, providing business consulting and communication services to research, nonprofit, and education organizations locally and nationally. So question number 1 for our commissioners. Share with us the top 3 priorities that you will focus on if elected as county commissioner.
I have several priorities. Right now I'm working on something to hand out next week, so I will use that as my notes. One of my priorities is to focus on local small business as well as entrepreneurs. I am an entrepreneur and a business owner, so I understand that we all want to not pay taxes and have great workers that we don't, have to pay that much because they love us so much. But the reality is that Fairfield County could be very attractive to small businesses and entrepreneurs if we put the right things in place. And one of those things is broadband access. I know in Pickerington you all enjoy access to the internet at high speeds. I live outside of Lancaster, and in Amanda and Hocking Township we don't have any access to broadband internet. I do all of my work, which is mostly online, with dial-up. If it's a really bad weather day, I go to the library. So that limits my ability. Right now, my business partner and I are working on an online business incubator, especially for women who are coaches or service providers, to get their information into podcasts and webinars. It's very, very hard to develop that program from my home. So if we work on the infrastructure, we can promote our county as a haven for small businesses and entrepreneurs. We have very low cost of living. We have very low home prices compared to Franklin County. And as people are looking to enlarge their families and grow their businesses, they're naturally going to look at Fairfield County. We are one of the few counties that are actually growing. And we can promote small business and entrepreneurship by investing in infrastructure such as broadband. And the second thing I always think about is working from the bottom up. I'd like to invest in workforce training and development because people and their skills stay here, whereas companies that we try to lure from the outside go away. We don't have any control over their outsourcing or their ability to move. So I'm for bottom-up economic development by focusing on people and skills. Thanks.
So first, thanks to the Chamber for inviting us out today and giving us this opportunity to speak to all of you. I'm fortunate to have had the opportunity to have a primary election earlier this year, so I had a chance to talk to you all back in March about my ideas on economic development, workforce development, the opiate issues, things that are critical to our county, critical to the business community. I've had a chance to speak to many of you about those things in my plans, and I've got a website that will put you to sleep after a while. There's so much information on it. Part of which also is, the things that Lee has brought up. We have a issue on there about bringing high-speed internet to all the county, particularly the farm community struggles with, in some places, not having access to the high-speed internet, so that's certainly part of my platform. My point in talking to you today is that it's okay to talk about these things, and it's good to have conversations about them, but you have to, once elected, go get the job done. Experience matters. Relationships matter. Vision matters. My experience in spending 14 years on Pickerington City Council and 35 years building small businesses in the restaurant industry is a significant point of differentiation between myself and my opponent. The relationships that I've built over the years here in Pickerington at the county level with all of our countywide elected officials, now starting to establish relationships with the folks who have their feet on the ground, the directors within the county government, starting to meet with all the township trustees and the villages, 13 villages, 13 townships, establishing those relationships. And I've got relationships with many of you here who have seen me do the work in Pickerington over the last 14 years and know that I have the experience, I have the vision, and I have those relationships. So I'm hoping for your vote, and I'm about to get tackled, so I'm done. Thank you.
All right, question number 2. So Jeff will go first on this one. Do you support a sales tax increase, which has been mentioned recently?
So again, this is a point where experience matters. We in the city of Pickerington have the lowest income tax rate in Central Ohio. We continue to maintain a balanced budget. We continue to spend $1 million a year on paving and do all of the things that a city government should do. I'm very proud of the work that we do as a city government with the lowest income tax rate in Central Ohio. Likewise, Fairfield County has the lowest sales tax rate in Central Ohio. I don't know that there's an immediate need to raise sales taxes. I know that there are going to be opportunities for us to either generate more revenue or reduce expenses that will give us an opportunity to catch a breath before we start talking too much about raising taxes. To me, it's about growing a bigger tax base. The more jobs we can bring into Fairfield County, the more economic development we can do, the bigger that tax base grows. Rather than growing the tax rate, my focus will be on building the tax base.
I have a wide variety of experience in my background, and with all due respect to Mr. Fix's experience on the Pickerington City Council, being a city council member in a city like Pickerington, in a county like Fairfield County, is a very different experience. His experience as city council will have great relationships in Pickerington and around the area. I'm a full-time commissioner for the full county. So when I look at a sales tax increase, I ask how it's going to affect people in Amanda and Bremen who are working for sub-wage jobs. Sales tax increases disproportionately affect low-income workers. I'm not in favor of them. What I'm in favor of is raising the wages here in the county to lift everyone up. If we lift from the bottom, your business grows because your customers are there. They can afford to spend money. If we put social supports in place, people can go out and go to your restaurant or buy your business services for their entrepreneurial idea. So I'm not in favor of a sales tax increase, and I'm a Democrat, because it disproportionately affects the people in our county who can least afford it. So I would encourage us to instead focus on what the Swank Institute at OSU calls the push to make a living, breathing community that people want to move to, because that's how we will get people here. Studies have shown that people don't come for jobs, they come for community, and that there's really no divide between community development and economic development. So in sum, I would not be in favor of a sales tax increase at this time because it disproportionately affects people who can least afford it.
All right, hang on to that because you'll go first for question number 3 here. What is your plan to attract businesses to Fairfield County, and what types of businesses will you focus on attracting?
I know that the manufacturing, what is it called, the MEP in Westerville does a great job of working with communities, townships, localities, and counties to think about how to bring mid-level manufacturing to our county. I never want a huge manufacturer to come in who could move 12 years later and take all those jobs. I'm focused on growing our local businesses. So I'd like to go to Bremen and talk to Worthington Industries. I'd like to work with small businesses, local businesses, and manufacturers already here and ask them, what is it that your employees need? I don't know that there's been a really solid business survey of the county. That seems to me a logical first step, to ask businesses what they need. And the logical second step is to develop the educational structures that we can to promote the skills that they need. The Educational Services Center had to give away part of an $8 million grant because of roadblocks from the county commissioners several years ago. That would have provided high school, GED, training, and all sorts of things to the students that most need it and the workers that you most need. So there are alternatives to bringing manufacturers here other than giving them tax breaks. And one of the biggest alternatives is to provide them the workforce that's trained, that's skilled, and that's ready to go. We can take those roadblocks away. We can take roadblocks away by you looking at your policies as business owners. Do you really need a policy that would provide barriers to people being employed by you? You know, look at your hiring policies. What are innovative things being done in other counties and other localities to provide the support that low-income workers need, that people with other barriers such as criminal pasts need to come to this county and work? Workforce development is the key. Bringing people here is the key.
So my approach is kind of multi-tiered. The first one is workforce development. We have around 500 unfilled skilled labor jobs in Fairfield County today. There's not enough skilled laborers to fill the jobs that we have, much less be ready for someone to bring a company to Fairfield County who would need more skilled labor. So we have to get the schools, the community colleges, the employment base, you all, the business community, our economic development, job and family services, get those folks together to create a program that will bring people through, not just high school kids, but people who are out in the workforce and are undertrained or underdeveloped at this point, get them through a program that will get them into skilled trade jobs, providing them with a good long-term career that does the wages that Leah's talking about, provides them with a good living wage. That's step one. Step two is, I think that there's, Fairfield County is ripe for small business. I've proposed putting a small business incubator here in Pickerington and one in Lancaster that would start grassroots small businesses. I've talked to a number of people here in town over the years, and we're just starting to get to the point where we can provide opportunities for people who have started a small business in their home and have grown it to the point where they need to move on, move out. We don't have that small business space here in town. We don't have it in Lancaster. We don't really have it throughout Fairfield County. So providing small business incubators, providing some infrastructure for people who are starting a small business is another way to grow jobs in the county. And then the third part is we've got 4 different economic development directors throughout the county. We've got the county, we've got Canal, we've got Pickerington, we've got Lancaster, we've got the 33 corridor, we've got Columbus 2020. We need to get everybody on the same page. Get all those people in a room and create a strategic plan for the long term for Fairfield County. Where are we going to go with economic development to bring jobs into the county? Thank you.
And our fourth question, what do you see as the most pressing needs for infrastructure or capital projects in the county?
You know, as I've been working my way around the county and visiting with the township trustees and the village administration, they're all struggling to keep up with their infrastructure. I think there's got to be a way to, and I know Jeremiah Upp, our county engineer, is working hard towards trying to find solutions for them. But their infrastructures are not keeping up with their communities. So we need to find a way to help them. I think the high-speed internet access, as I posted in my web platform, is critical. There's an inequality between places that have that high speed and places that don't. There's an inequality for the education of our young people. There's an inequality for the people who are trying to run a business. There's an inequality for the farmers, as I mentioned before. So that part of the infrastructure obviously needs to be shored up. And then, you know, we need to kind of prepare ourselves for what's going to be coming down the road. We know that they're estimating 500,000 new people will be coming into Central Ohio over the next 25 years. We know that Buckeye Lake is now up and running again and doing better than ever. We know that Amazon is to our north. We've got Rickenbacker down to the southwest. We've got the fracking industry to the southeast. All of those things going on all around us provide us with great opportunity. We need to make sure not only that we have the economic development plan to take advantage of those opportunities, but that we have the infrastructure to support.
So I already said infrastructure in terms of internet broadband because, again, it affects me every day. There are days when I just want to throw my laptop out my window, frankly. Every little bit of weather affects my ability to do my work for my clients online. But I think one of the things that is important is to work with the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission and look at transit in our area. As more people come in and out, and as we have these enormous distribution centers in our area, we have to look more clearly at the roadways and develop some plans to, for the future, accommodate that kind of traffic. We can also make plans, I think, for the Fairfield County Airport to become some kind of hub, and maybe using our business development experience to talk to Amazon, to talk to some of the distributors and find out how they can use our airport as a particular transit for their goods. In terms of infrastructure, you know, I didn't do a lot of top-down conversations. I've met with a couple of the county members of boards and heads of departments. I've mostly talked to people who are just wandering around, being citizens and living their lives. One of the things that they talk about in my area is broadband, and the other thing that they talk about is mindful development, not building enormous developments that strain cities like Amanda's. There's a push right now in Amanda for citizens to, you know, calm down, not sell your farm property to developers, because those are the kinds of things that county commissioners really need to look at in terms of roadways and development. We can't continue to build infrastructure for certain particular projects with tax breaks and then have to maintain it for the next 30 years. I'd like to see a return on investment statement for some of those development projects that we've been engaged in going forward. So one of the things that I think is important is that you commit to being a full-time commissioner. As Fairfield County grows, and we're just going to grow, I mean, we're lucky. We have this enormous potential living next to a hub like Columbus, Ohio. Fairfield County is going to grow with citizens and businesses. That's inevitable. It needs a full-time commissioner. We can't just push off all of the commissioner duties on an unelected administrator. We need a full-time commissioner who's open, accountable, and transparent to the entire county. When I say I'm going to be a full-time commissioner, I'm going to be a full-time commissioner, and I'm going to be for the full county. So I'd like to ask you, what are your reasons for not wanting to be a full-time commissioner?
To me, there is no time off. When you're a county commissioner, you're a county commissioner at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. You're a county commissioner at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday. As a city councilman here for the last 14 years, I've never taken my city council hat off. Whenever somebody needs something, you answer that call. You take that meeting. You have that conversation. You help that person out. I don't know that you need to sit in an office 40 hours a week to call yourself a full-time county commissioner. I think you need to be out and about in the community. As I mentioned before, over the past couple months, I've been out to every township and every village, not only knocking on doors and meeting people, but sitting through their village meetings, sitting through their township trustee meetings to hear what's going on, to hear what their issues and concerns are, and to hopefully start to establish those relationships so that once elected, they know that they've got someone they can call in the county commissioner's office. This is not a part-time job, it's an all-the-time job. And I've approached everything I've ever done in my professional life and in my public service life. As a councilman, we're never off. In the restaurant industry, you all know, there is no downtime, right? As a county commissioner, I'll be your all-the-time county commissioner. So, my question to you, my whole part of my presentation is that experience matters. With all of the things that go into being a county commissioner, tell me how, without having served in any kind of elected capacity, you feel like you're able to step into that significant role. When you build a house, you don't hire a contractor that's never lifted a hammer. So when you're hiring a county commissioner, you don't have that background. So I'm interested to hear how you feel like your lack of experience can help move the county forward.
Well, when you build a house, you don't ask the plumber to build the foundation, and you don't ask the electrician to build the roof. Every part of building a house requires different skills and a variety of skills to make that house happen. So one of the things that I bring is a focus on funding and transparency. And one of the things that I mean by that is that my experience has been in education, research, nonprofit management, and for-profit businesses. I have a variety of experience, and I can talk to different aspects of our county in that way. But one of the things that I am very interested in is looking at the way that our county right now is looking for grant funding. There's regional, there's rural development business grants that I wonder if we're not going after. There are rural development initiatives at the state and federal level that we need to get involved in. One of the primary experiences that I have is looking for that grant funding and evaluating whether that's appropriate for a particular project or mission. My best experience right now is asking questions. I love to learn. I love to hear and synthesize information. If you think nothing else of my PhD, it's that I love to listen and learn. And I have a great capacity, a huge capacity to learn. I've learned so much just since we met in April about this county and its governance that I can bring to the table, because I'm not locked into any kind of old network of people or places. I can look outside of the county for ideas and innovative solutions, and I'm not bound to my particular contemporaries' opinions.
Certainly invite you after the luncheon if you'd like to ask some more questions. If I can invite up our candidates for state rep, please. Okay, so our first question. Share with us the top 3 priorities that you will focus on if elected as our state representative.
So I'm running for office as a third-party candidate. That's why there's 3 up here. And as a libertarian, one of my biggest issues is taxation. I want to get rid of the income tax and put an average of $1,300 back in each of your pockets. That's each of your customers' pockets. That's more people with more money to shop at your businesses. And that's a lot less red tape you have to do when you're dealing with state income payroll. Second, we are working on decriminalizing marijuana. We don't mean just legalize and regulate how you can cultivate and consume. We want a full decriminalization because we have an opioid crisis going on right now. We need a solution, a real solution, and not all of these deaths that we're getting. In states like Colorado that legalized, they found that overdose and addiction rates dropped by up to 35%. I think that's an area worth exploring. That's a lot of business going on here. It's a booming business, marijuana is. You wouldn't believe it, but people like to get high. So, this is a booming business. I would say my third priority is bringing transparency to the Ohio Online Checkbook. There's a category on there labeled Other. It contains $3 billion. I'd like to know where that other is, because we're over $22 billion in debt. We have perpetuated this debt for far too long. That's basically pulling out a credit card in your child's name when you run out of money, because each of our children owe $7,500. So those are my priorities. I'm here to bring a new face and a new party to the state legislature. Thank you.
Good afternoon, thanks for having me here today. When it comes to my top 3 priorities, most of them have been dictated by your friends and neighbors. So far in our campaign, I think that my wife Kimberly and I have knocked somewhere around 4,000 or 5,000 doors so far, and we're going to do it again by Election Day. And the stories that I'm hearing from our friends and neighbors focus on, on a number of key issues, and we probably understand what those issues are. First and foremost, probably the thing I hear most about is healthcare. Anxiety about access to healthcare. All right, I can't tell you the number of people I've met in the district who are making weekly choices between paying their bills and paying for their medications. All right, this is an issue we have to address. It's a massive issue with a lot of different pieces and parts that I can't properly get into in a 2-minute setting in front of you today. But it is a tremendous issue that we need to tackle, because it is my belief that healthcare is a human right. We have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, first of these being life. And I believe that means the ability to maintain and extend that life. And until everybody has it, we're not doing the job. All right. Second, the other day I was in Lancaster, probably about a mile from my opponent's house, and I was in a neighborhood and I knocked a 10-door stretch on one street. 6 people on that street had a member in the household in recovery right now. One gentleman I spoke to said he had lost 3 friends in the past year, including the mother of his 2 young boys. He was maybe 25 years old. Now, I don't have a whole lot more time. I've spent it talking on issues number 1 and 2. Doesn't mean that issue 3 is not of serious importance, and that is wages. 1/3 of Ohio's jobs pay poverty wages. It's a massive problem, and we need to attack it aggressively. And those would be my top three issues moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Representative Tim Schaefer. I've been representing you in the House of Representatives in Columbus, Ohio House of Representatives, and it's an honor to represent you. I've worked very, very hard at it, and I want to say thanks to the Chamber for hosting this and having us here today. Getting the word out about our candidates and issues is very, very important. It's a key part of democracy. Top 3 issues. I think definitely one that moves a lot of other issues in this state is making sure we're continuing to cut taxes and rein in the expansive growth of government, which we are doing, and making sure our regulatory environment is conducive to building businesses, because when we build businesses, we create jobs, right? That's our philosophy. That's been my philosophy for a long time, and we have, with my votes and my sponsorship, made sure that we have delivered billions in tax cuts to your pockets and your customers' pockets. Right now, since 2011, we've cut the income tax and other taxes, business taxes, the small business tax also, $5 billion. That's $5 billion back in your companies, back in your pockets. And what do you do with that money? You spend it or you save it, you invest it. You invest it, you create jobs with it somehow, somewhere. Secondly, the opioid epidemic. We absolutely got to continue keeping a handle on this crisis. It is an absolute crisis. It is ravaging the families across the country and in Ohio. Ohio is no exception. But we have done over 12.5 bills, from closing down pill mills to sending bad docs, the few that there are out there, to prison, and making sure that we are cutting the overprescribing of opiates. Opiate overprescribing has plummeted 30% in the time that we've been working on that. And lastly, I'll hit education. The cost of education, both public education, K through 12, as well as higher education. We have made sure we are doing right by the Dorff decision and piling more money in K through 12 education, and I think you see the results. We're very competitive across the country. $52 million in buildings in Pickerington schools alone. Higher education, I've done 3 initiatives to lower the cost of higher ed. Thank you.
What do you believe is the most important economic issue facing Ohio?
That's an awfully big question. There's a number of different ways to go about it, and when you're talking about the economy, I guess to take kind of a philosophical approach, I'm not sure that we really understand exactly what we're talking about. When we talk about an economy, there's a question that I want to ask everybody, and I hope if it's the one thing you take from me here today, I hope this is it. What is an economy for? Why does it exist? Why do we bother with all of this? And the idea is we do it to provide good lives for our friends and neighbors, to lift up the community. I'm as happy as the next guy that the Dow is hitting a high number. That's fantastic. All right? But what I really want to see is I want to see my neighbor buy a new bass boat because he got a raise at work, because his wages are going up, because business is good. All right? I think we've done a really good job at top line income for the top line earners, for the top 1%. I think we've done a fantastic job for these people. We are the richest nation in the history of history. But is it helping regular folks? Is it helping our friends and neighbors? Is it lifting all boats? And it's not. And so that's why I would choose, as an answer to this particular question, I would say that wages. Wage increases is the #1 priority, especially in Ohio, where 1/3 of our jobs pay poverty wages. You can have a 0 unemployment number if that's the case, and people will still struggle to get by, even if they have 2 or 3 of these jobs, as many people do. All right? It's a real problem. We don't need 5,000 more $9 an hour jobs. What we need is one good job for every one of our friends and neighbors who wants one. Thank you.
Questions, what we can do for the economy?
Most important economic issue facing Ohio?
Well, I tell you, having been an observer of state government for a long time, outside and inside, I can tell you that probably the most devastating thing we could do right now is to raise taxes. That happened in 1983. Yeah, I was around in 1983. I was in college, and I remember when the Democrats were in control of the House, the Senate, and the governor's residence. Your income taxes went up 90%. That was their way of solving problems. We cannot go back to those days. I remember thinking in college, 90%, when I start my career, how much of my paycheck is going to go to pay for state government that I will never see, I will never be affected by. I really wondered about that. Today we're cutting taxes, $5 billion back in your pockets. We're cutting red tape and regulations so you can operate. And if you got a red piece of red tape or regulation that's hindering your business, I want to know about it. Grab my card in the back. It's the biggest business card in the world. Has my home number and home email on it. I want to hear your story so we can get to work on your case, because we are cutting these things. And if there's another one out there left that we don't know about, you got to tell us about it so that we can cut it and get it out of the way of job production. Because when Ohioans are working, Ohioans are succeeding. Families are succeeding. Businesses are succeeding. That is absolutely critical. We keep government and its bureaucracy. They got the jobs to do, but keep them out of your way as you grow your businesses. That is an absolute critical part. We have brought the top rate of personal income tax in Ohio down below 5%. Extremely competitive with the rest of the country, but we can even do better yet. Being a Midwestern state, we have a great heritage of industrial production throughout the ages, but we got to bring back a lot of the industrial production. We have the energy for it. We can support them, but we got to make sure we have a tax and regulatory environment that will support them as well and get out of the way.
So I know you said you have the biggest card out there. I mean, there can be jokes made about that. I have the smallest one out there, and that's because I'm fiscally conservative. Because why spend a bunch of money on big cards when I can be spending money talking to voters, door knocking, and engaging in my community? So if you want to check out my card, it talks about exactly what I want to do. And that is cut the state income tax to so little that it's zero. We had a state income tax started in 1972. You know what we had before 1972? Roads, hospitals, schools, and some would say that they were better back then than they are now. Our state income tax, while low, is still high. Like I said, we each pay on average $1,300 a year. So imagine cutting that to zero. South Dakota doesn't have a state income tax. They still have infrastructure. There's lots of states doing this, and we need to be on that road too. And like my opponent says about regulations, yeah, we need to cut some red tape. Cato Institute rates us 50 out of 50 for occupational licensing. That's people that are hairdressers, that have to go to school longer than a nurse sometimes to cut hair. We could have more people getting these higher wage jobs if they had applicable training and not tons of forms to fill out and fees to pay and lots of bureaucracy. I'm tired of bureaucracy. I'm tired of the red tape, and I'm not just going to cut it. I'm going to end it.
I guess my main question to both my opponents, I'll ask the same question to both of them. What in your professional background shows as evidence to all of us, we're all voters here in Fairfield County in the 77th District, I presume, what evidence, what in your background shows that you will actually be able to cut taxes, if you want to cut taxes, reduce the burden of government? Where's your track record? What proven track record do you have? And give us the evidence. As opposed to evidence that I've given you of my voting record, what is your record, public record?
So I'm only 28 years old. I'm a millennial. And I don't know if you know that that means I am now in the biggest voting block that there is. The boomers are going out, Gen X is getting older. I'm the biggest voting block. I bring a lot of kind of excitement to this. I get people involved. I'm the Deputy Vice Chair of the Libertarian Party of Ohio. I'm actually already a state elected official. I'm on my Libertarian Party Central Committee. I represent the 15th District. Through my advocacy through the party, I've been able to bring a lot of pragmatism, which I think is needed. I am 100% for transparency, which we have brought. I believe in working with everyone, and that is my track record. I'm an environmentalist, which most people don't hear when they hear libertarian. I'm a health food advocate. I'm a vegetarian. Those are things people don't hear when they hear libertarian. Because I work with everyone. I've worked with the Fairfield County Democrats when we protested Steve Stivers. I worked with Republicans when I protested the Federal Reserve. And I've worked with independents and Greens. I work with everyone. I have a proven track record of being able to bring people together to come up with solutions. We helped encourage the free market to bring GMO labeling. I did that as an organizer for the National March Against Monsanto. So these are, it might not be a professional track record in 30 years of the State House, but it's the 10 years that I've had in my adult life as an activist, as a community leader, that I can bring to the table.
Well, I guess I would say, again, I like to tell stories, so I'll tell a little story about when I walked in here today. Kind of got a feeling of deja vu, all right? I used to come to meetings like this all the time. I'm a teacher. I've spent, the last, 10, 12 years of my life in academia. I've got 4 degrees, and I've been teaching for a very long time. But previous to that, I was a recruiter. I would come to functions like these all the time, and I've probably seen just about every shop floor in Columbus. I know who buys from who sells to who, and so on. I was the guy you used to call when you couldn't find someone, that specialized skill set. If you needed someone, who was 25 years old with 30 years of experience, was one of the old inside jokes we used to talk about. All right? You would come to me, and I would go out into the world, and I would find that person for you. That was my job. That was my business. All right? And I was good at it. All right? So, but at my mid-career level, I realized I don't have a college degree. I'm not moving on. I'm not going any further. That's when I went back to school. And at that time, I fell in love with school, and I've been there ever since. So that was kind of, while I am a teacher now, and that's what most people know me as, these environments are not unfamiliar to me. Speaking to business is not unfamiliar to me in any way, shape, or form. I've done it for years. I've done it for a very long time. I've led teams of people. Right? It's not something that is foreign to me in any way, shape, or form. So in terms of experience, while yeah, I'm a first-time candidate. I'm one of those first-time candidates you've been hearing about, on the news every night. But I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. I see it as a good thing. New eyes make discoveries. This happens in almost every industry. You need new eyes. You need a fresh perspective. You need a new lens through which to view the problem. So the fact that I've never been in government before, that I've never held elected office before, never even run for student council before, I don't see this as a weakness. I see it as a positive. Thank you.
Since I'm asking both of my opponents here, it's kind of a two-parter. How do you think the political climate is going now? And how do you think your actions affect the political climate? And how do you think you can make it better?
Well, that's interesting. I'm sorry, we didn't figure out who was going to go first, so I guess I just grabbed the mic. So here we are. Chrissy's right. The political climate is as toxic as it has ever been. I'm 44 years old. I've never seen anything like this before. It actually worries me a lot because I look out at my classroom, I look at my students, and I'm looking at a group of people for whom this is becoming their new normal. All right, and that's frightening. Watching students, as I tell them about these things that are going on in the world, watching these students look at me as if, it's no big deal. It's a very big deal. All right? We need to start working together again. Up on stage here, we've got a Republican, a Democrat, and a Libertarian. All right? And you're going to elect one of us. I'm hoping it's me. All right? But you're going to need someone for who those labels don't really matter as much as they currently do. There's a lot of us here who vote the tribe. We always have. All right? As my grandfather said, if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you always got. All right? And that's where we're at now. Hard line allegiances to party over people, to party over community. And these things have got to stop. So one thing I can tell you is this. I'm a member of a political party. And I am so because I believe in their core foundations and core principles. But when those principles run up against the interests of my district or the people in my district or the people in this room right now, I'm going to vote with the people every time. Right? I'm up here right now with an opponent who's been in office for 18 years. Keep in mind there's term limits of 8 years in each house, so you do the math. In that time, and I've had teams of researchers looking into this, I can't find a non-party line vote. Not one. All right? So, again, the idea, if you don't find a way to become independent in some small way in 18 years, well, then it's time for some new blood. Thank you very much for your time.
Actually, that's a good question. I appreciate it. I think that this hyper-partisanship that you see has a lot of root causes, but we all need to rise above it. I like to say politics is how we get there, but governing for everybody in this room, everybody in our community, is what you do starting January when you get sworn in, when you take that oath of office. And that's very, very important. I'll give you an example. I work very well across party lines. We don't have any libertarians in the General Assembly, but we have Republicans and Democrats. Many times I have reached across the line and brought Democrats on board a bill, an issue, or a cause. I'll give you an example. Several years ago when I was in the state Senate, and yes, I was in the state Senate and represented you 8 years in the state Senate, we had a major employer here in Fairfield County. I won't name names, but they got a huge new bill from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. It was going to bankrupt them. It was devastating. They said, we're out of business tomorrow when we write this check. So it was the Strickland administration. He was Democrat. I'm a Republican. I picked up the phone immediately and said, we got to talk. Let's get together quickly. We have an emergency in Fairfield County. A lot of jobs at stake. A lot of families' futures at stake. They were on the floor of the Senate that afternoon to find me. And I left the floor to go caucus with them in a hallway. And within 36 hours, we had a solution to that. 48 hours, 72 hours later, the issue was gone. Workers' Compensation got their actuaries together, recalculated, and got a decent number for the deposit that they had. It's a self-insured workers' company. And we saved the jobs, a lot of jobs. Reaching across the aisle is an integral part of this job. And I got to tell you, in Columbus, you don't see the hyper-partisanship that you do on Fox and on CNN and the cable news stations. A lot of that is there, and it's not so much in Columbus. We are partisan, we have a job to do, we have philosophies that we have to appeal to and that we have to adhere to, but we do work together. Thank you.
Seeking elected office is something that I've learned to revere. The idea of getting up in front of you and asking for this job. All right? So I think one of the key components to doing this job is actually doing the job. Now there are a lot of possibilities, there are a lot of inner workings within the party that involve potentially moving this office over here and that office over here and banking a seat here, letting someone from outside the district choose your next rep. What I want to ask of both my opponents right now, if you are elected, can you commit to serving your entire term in the seat to which you were elected and not seeking nor accepting any other job?
Good question. This is not a substance-based issue. This is a manufactured issue by my opponent, as you might tell. I've answered this question last week at the Lancaster Rotary. I answered it 2 months ago in the Eagle Gazette. And I plan on winning on November 6th, the 77th House District. I plan on being sworn in January. But I have a great concern about who represents Fairfield County, and particularly the 77th District, and any other political entity, whoever represents this county. We still have problems in our county, and who goes in office is a big concern of mine. So I will, in one way or another, be helping to affect that process. I want to make sure that we have good, honest people, not corrupt people. I have fought corruption for 20 years. Those of you who are involved in the Republican Party will remember when I was chair of the party, it was a former corrupt county official that I was responsible for taking out of office and running a primary on. And we ended up with a great sheriff as a result, in Dave Phelan. So I will make sure that my pledge to you is that we will have, I'll do my best to make sure we have honest, forthright people in offices in this county. And I am running for the House of Representatives. I appreciate your support. And if you don't mind, I would like to divert a little bit. Issue 1, I don't know if you all have seen some material on issue 1. Please vote no. It is an absolute devastating issue. It is veiled in California big donor money. My theory is, and I think you can point to some evidence, that some of those big California donors have for-profits that are going to make a lot of money on it if it passes. Last week in Lancaster Rotary, I predicted that we'll have a whole lot of fatalities as a result if issue 1 passes. And the Coroners Association came out right after that, a day or two later, and said, we're going to empty the prisons and fill the morgues. That's exactly what's going to happen. But thank you for the question.
Well, Brett, yes, I would be committed to staying the full term in the House of Representatives. I am not being looked at being appointed to a state Senate seat by Troy Balderson. He has not called me, so I guess I will not be taking that seat. If I could divert a little bit, some of you have seen the recent news that I had my right to vote challenged by the Ohio Republican House, their committee. Yesterday, the Board of Elections had to have a hearing to determine if I could vote because I changed my name in 2017 when I married my husband. I don't know about the other women in the room, but that's pretty traditional. It's pretty weird that the Ohio Republican Party would go against traditional marriage. Maybe they're tired of talking about gay marriage, who knows? I married my heterosexual male husband, and I changed my name. And yesterday at this hearing, there was the gentleman who challenged me on the stand. We asked him, under oath, did you pay for your own legal bills? He said no. We asked him under oath, do you know Representative Tim Schaefer? He said yes. I'm not going to speculate, but I think it's ridiculous in this political climate that a 28-year-old woman is getting her right to vote challenged in 2018 because I married my husband. So I want you to think about, when we talk about corruption, I want you to think that under oath, someone admitted that he didn't pay his own legal bills and admitted to knowing my opponent, Representative Tim Schaefer.
Please share who your organization serves and what programs you offer.
Okay, thank you. The Fairfield County Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Board, or ADMH for short, is the County Behavioral Health Authority for Fairfield County for public mental health services. And we have a board that is comprised of 8 individuals who are appointed by the Fairfield County Commissioners and 6 who are appointed by the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. And ADMH serves thousands of people every year, including children, including families, and has a whole list of programs. And a lot of people aren't familiar with who ADMH is, but they are familiar with the agencies that we fund. For example, New Horizons Mental Health Services, Tyler's Light, Project Fort, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Ohio Guidestone, Mid-Ohio Psychological Services. And so oftentimes if we then mention those, people are more familiar than with the name ADMH.
Is your levy a renewal or new money?
That's a great question. Our levy is a new request. Our board was very hesitant to ask for new money. We are very blessed to have a .75 mil levy that was passed in 14 as a renewal, but given the needs that are continue to grow every year, ADMH felt like it was important to come and ask the voters to please support additional funding for the opioid crisis, for services for kids to do early intervention, and for suicide prevention services for adults and kids.
And what is the opposition to this levy, if any?
That's a great question. I have not heard, I'm trying to remember, have you heard of any opposition?
I'm not allowed to answer questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I guess let me speculate. So one thing that someone may say is that taxes, that it will increase my taxes. It is a good value. It is $3 a month per $100,000 of home ownership. And again, when you look at how the needs are increasing and we look at all that we can do, that we cannot do now because of not having the funds, we believe it's a very good investment for the community. And when people who have an addiction or mental health disorder receive the treatment they need, it not only helps that individual, it helps their family, it helps their neighbors, it helps the school, it helps the employer, it helps everybody.
Who does your levy serve?
Any Fairfield County resident who has a need for mental health or addiction services. One of the, and we do prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery supports. For example, one of the programs that we recently initiated in the Pickerington schools with Ohio Guidestone is the Incredible Years. And it is a program for children, early intervention kinds of programming. And I was shocked when I first learned that there are children that get kicked out of preschool because of their behavior problems. And when you think about that, if a child can't control themselves in preschool, what's going to happen as they grow older? And so the idea is to try to get in and begin to change those trajectories at the youngest age possible, when the minds are more malleable and the child is better able to make those changes than when they get older.
Next, we got the Pickerington Public Library, Mr. Howard.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's begin with if you'll share who your organization serves and what programs you offer.
So the Pickerington Public Library serves the entire Pickerington local school district and everyone that lives within its borders. It serves anyone with a public library card because we do receive state funding through the PLF, the Public Library Fund, and so anybody in Ohio who has a library card we also serve. 27,000 card holders is how many card holders we have, and 69% of those card holders live within our taxing district. Did you ask another piece of that question?
What programs?
Programs. Oh, so programs, and we offer a lot of different programs and services, from early literacy classes to tons of business resources that I want to make sure. I've worked 3 years since I've been here to get the word out, and I want to make sure people know about the business resources that we have. You know, we have state-of-the-art conference and meeting rooms that have wireless presentation systems and the ability to do virtual conferencing, and many members of the business community already use our conference and meeting rooms on a regular basis. We offer wireless internet access where we have independent businesses who don't have brick and mortar stores often come to our library. When you come to the main library and walk around in the daytime, you'll see people spread out on tables with computers. Those are businesses. They're running their business outside of the home, inside the library, and so they're using us as a resource. We have many databases that we offer on market research, offer professional journals. We have resources that offer business plan help, building business plans, finance and accounting, and we do classes, webinars, and lunch and learns geared towards businesses.
Very good. Your levy is a renewal plus some additional ask. What will the additional funds be used for?
So the additional funds will be used for current services and resources that we provide. In addition to, we're looking at 3 different areas. So technology changes all the time, and we need to keep up with technologies in order to support the business community, the over 10,000 students that are in the community, and just the general public that uses the library. And so technology resources and changing emerging technologies. We also expanding Sycamore Plaza's hours. Sycamore Plaza is our branch library that was opened last year in September, and we're already hearing back from the public that our limited hours don't fit what the community needs. And the third thing is serving the northwest portion of our service area. We have a huge service area where we have 50,000, almost 50,000 residents as of 2010 when the census came out. I'm sure we have more. And so we have a huge service area that we're responsible for covering. And we know just from community surveys that we are not covering that area of our community well enough with the current funds. This levy will be 57% of our operating funds. And so without it, we are not going to be able to continue the current services that we have today, let alone the extra that this 0.5 mil, it's about 4 cents a day.
Okay, well, thank you for having us here today, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here to advocate for the seniors of Fairfield County. So Meals on Wheels is been serving the seniors of Fairfield County for 45 years. We are a proven system of support for the seniors of Fairfield County, designed to be here day in and day out for every aging person in our county. We do so much more than just deliver those home-delivered meals that you hear about. We're that moment of human connection for a person for the day, and for many of our seniors, we're the only person they see in their entire day. We also do a daily safety check. You know, you don't think about that. Some of our seniors don't have people close by who can check in on them, so our drivers are there each day. Meals on Wheels also offers a whole entire menu of supportive services. All these services are designed to improve the quality of life for our seniors and help them remain living independently in their homes. You know, as we age, mobility challenges really do put a crimp in our style. And so you do need some extra support to help you stay independent in your home. So those services also include things like those emergency response buttons. We help with personal care and homemaking. We have minor home repair programs and utility assistance programs. We also do representative payee services. But what I want to point out is all these services that are really designed for people 60 and older, living in Fairfield County, or their caregivers. Helping to improve the quality of life for seniors is what we're all about.
All right, so who qualifies for your services? In other words, is it income-based, need-based? How does that work?
No, so again, services are need-based. Anyone age 60 and older, or if you're a caregiver caring for someone 60 and older, you may qualify for the services of Meals on Wheels. And we start those services all with an in-home assessment. We have a whole staff of care coordinators, and they go out and they meet with our seniors and their caregivers and see what their living conditions are like and what their needs are. And then we offer the services that are available to them, and our seniors can choose the services that they would like to receive. Eligibility is not based on income. Again, you can have all the money in the world, but if you have no one to care for you, then you're up a creek. So our services are need-based.
All right, and how does Meals on Wheels impact the business community?
Impacting the business community. You're asking some really hard questions. So you're all taxpayers, right? So we are going to have a levy increase this year. We've had a levy in place, began in 2004. We started in 1973. Up to 2004, we had United Way funding, donations, and that kind of thing, helping support our services. Come up to 2004, right around in there, huge waiting list for services. That funding was not enough. And the voters of Fairfield County said, this is not okay. It's not okay when our seniors are reaching out for help and to be put on a waiting list. So they passed the first Meals on Wheels Senior Services Levy in 2004. Since that time, Meals on Wheels has doubled their services. We've doubled the number of meals out the door, and our in-home support services have increased by over 100%. And so we're looking to the voters this year for the first time since the levy was initiated and asking for a 0.3 mil increase. That's going to cost you $10.50 a year on a $100,000 home valuation to keep your mom, your grandma, your neighbor in their own home. Now, when we start talking about taxes going up, everybody gets a little scared about that. But let's talk about an investment. You're investing an additional $10.50 to keep your grandparents, your mom, your dad, your neighbor in their own home, and you're going to save taxpayer dollar. For every dollar you invest in Meals on Wheels, you're going to save up to $50 in Medicare in Medicaid spending. And that's an important fact. We can feed a senior for an entire year, keep them in their home, out of nursing homes, out of hospitals, out of ER visits, which cost Medicare, Medicaid. We can feed them for that entire year for the cost of 1 day in a hospital or 7 days in a nursing home. So I think that's a good investment.
All right, let's have a round of applause for Randy.